Let's go indeed. Welcome in everybody to another episode of the Strength for Your Purpose podcast. Hope you've been having a fantastic week. I know I have, and excited to bring you another awesome conversation here this week. I have another recurring guest on the podcast. It's been a little bit since I've had a recurring guest on the podcast. And this gentleman joined me back in, it was this winter sometimes, because we were talking about some Winter Olympic stuff and how the Simone Biles situation and how all of us can learn from that. And I'm pleased to have him back on. The guest this week is my good friend, Chris Stevenson, who is an advisor with Edward Jones and began his Edward Jones career in 2018 as a financial advisor. And every day he looks forward to helping people navigate their financial goals. He and I were lucky enough to go to Husson University together. We both have graduate degrees from Husson University, which we are very, very proud of. And when Chris isn't in the office, he is spending time with his incredible, and I can't say that enough, incredible wife, Kayla, and their golden retriever, Maya. Chris, buddy, thanks so much for coming on and joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dr. Phil. Glad to be back.
Yeah, real happy to have you. And I saw something that you had, shared, or a strategy. Well, it's a strategy that I've worked on with you a little bit, albeit maybe not as well as I should have. We should maybe have a conversation about that off the podcast. But I saw a strategy you were talking about and sharing, and it got me thinking a little bit about, how stressful things can be around finances, especially right now. There's, all you hear about is like the market volatility and inflation, and is there an impending recession? So there's so much uncertainty right now. And people like you are so important when there's not this uncertainty, because most of us don't understand how to use our money and be fit with our money. So wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit about some things people can do to help navigate some of that financial stress in a super uncertain time, but also even when things maybe aren't as uncertain.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a huge question. I mean, we're going to see it every day, no matter what we're doing in our lifetime. I kind of relate it all the time with clients. It's just like the media. I mean, when you turn on the news, it's always going to be something bad. So really what we do is just kind of put our blinders on, shut off the noise, and just really refocus on what we can control. We cannot control inflation. We cannot control who the president's going to be or anything like that. We can't control war, but we can control our own habits. So it's a good start just to, really focus on taking a look at ourselves, on our budget, and what we're currently doing to help, decrease that stress that we have when it comes to our finances.
Sure. No, that's a great point. I think controlling what you can control is a fantastic sort of mantra that we can apply to any aspects of our life. But what would you say is going to be the first step for people to kind of figure out what they can control? Like, where do they even start to figure out what they can control within their financial fitness, let's say?
Yeah, absolutely. So it depends. I guess the first step would really be thinking about, okay, what are your goals? Where do you want to be? Maybe that's paying down debt, student loan debt, credit card debt, house, cars, or maybe it's saving for retirement or saving for little one's college education. It's kind of figuring out, okay, what are going to be my priorities in this aspect, and where am I today, and how am I going to get there? So kind of thinking, okay, high level, what are we looking to accomplish, but where am I today, most importantly?
Right. Yeah. Because the knowing where you want to be, that endpoint is great, but you got to have the starting point, right? Because the steps in between are going to be very different depending on where you're starting.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I mean, what I take through with a lot of our friends and clients is, no matter what, we're going to take a look at your budget. Whether you want to pay down student loan debt at a faster rate or you want to retire early, we're going to set a budget to see, okay, what are our expenses? What's our income? Maybe where can we trim the fat, or what can we do a little bit better? It's a tough life that we're living in, because quite frankly, 50% of, Americans are basically living to paycheck. So it's figuring out steps. Okay, how can we not do this to ourselves? Because every single week, we're just waiting for the next paycheck to come in.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think stuff like that is probably where a lot of that stress comes from, but it's probably a combination of, you have an idea that that's part of your problem, but you don't really have an idea why it's your problem or how big of a problem it might be. you might actually be slightly more comfortable than you think you are,
Exactly.
if you actually like break the numbers down, right?
Right, right. And I mean, I tell you this all the time, but our worlds collide. I mean, being a PT and being a financial therapist, I guess you could call me, is you might have an nagging injury, it's there. Should you take a look at it or kind of take a deeper dive? But life gets in the way, and our priorities aren't our finances, or our priorities might not be us, it might be our family. So
Mhm.
where it goes by the wayside. But yeah,
Right.
super.
Yeah. Well, and we're going to be that much better in both of our worlds. We're going to be that much better at taking care of the things that we prioritize over ourselves or our finances if we handle those things a little bit better, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some other maybe strategies that people can look into when it comes to not just breaking down the current budget, but maybe budgeting a little bit better that will help them tackle, let's say, the debt thing, right? Because we all know that the student debt thing is a big deal, right now. And for at least a little while longer, they're helping us out with that a little bit, you know. But what are some other budgeting type strategies aside from just doing the budget that might help some people get a little bit more clarity in their situation and their starting point?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, a couple different action items that I always recommend. I mean, it's super simple, and you can basically kind of set it and forget it. So, one thing would be, if say specifically, let's try and pay down debt early. Try not to hit just your minimum payment that's due. Let's say we have student loans of $200 a month. Hey, if we can throw $250 a month at student loans, that extra $50 is going to go straight towards principal.
Yeah.
So, going to pay down your debt a lot quicker, and you'll start to see a little bit more compound interest when it comes to paying down debt for yourself. So, and the same to be said, like I said, setting and forgetting, kind of like your company retirement plan or 401k plan. You're really not seeing that money go out, so maybe we set up a different account to not touch it. It's not going to be our checking or savings. This is just going to be our money that we're going to put towards student loan debt. So,
Mm.
yeah, something that we're just not seeing really.
Right, right. Yeah, have maybe even having like I think what you're saying here is maybe even having like if you can allocate money into different accounts from your direct deposit, like have a certain amount of your paycheck go into a separate account that is only linked to your student loan servicer to pay those student loans every month at the rate that you want, so that you just know it's there, it's going there, and you don't have to worry about it or change it or adjust it or anything like that.
Exactly right. Yep, exactly right.
Yeah, fantastic. So what are another question that kind of comes up here, because I know you mentioned like retirement plans and things like that. So if people do have that sort of like set it and forget it, like you said, plan, with their company, and maybe they look at their budget, they take some of your great advice here, look at their budget, say, you know what, I can maybe throw a little extra at my debt, whatever that debt might be. But I also want to start saving for retirement because I know if I do that earlier, it's going to be better. What are some ways for people who are maybe trying to trying to retire on a budget, right? Not ball on a budget, but retire on a budget that they can start to use? Like, is there a certain amount that's not enough? Does it matter? Like, what are because I feel like as people do some of these budgets, that question might come up. Like, do I even have enough here to start investing in my retirement outside of what's coming out of my paycheck that I don't even really notice every 2 weeks?
Right, exactly. So it's super important just to have balance over brains. I mean, I probably say that quote, 100 times a day. Balance over brains. You want to try, and you can't just solely focus on paying down debt. You got to pay for your future too. So you can't pay for what's behind you, but you should look at what's in your future as well. So, when I say balance over brains, it really depends. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but
Mm.
you want to get, okay, if it's for your debt, what's your interest rate, what's your term, how much you're paying, what's your income really. And quite frankly, when it comes to saving for retirement, how much time do you have, how much can you put away in your retirement, what does your company give if they're giving a match at all, because you'd be crazy not to take advantage of that company match as well. So at a bare minimum, try and do that.
Mm.
And obviously, the everybody says it, but the younger you are, the earlier you start, the better off you're going to be when it comes to retirement. So,
Mm. Yeah, fantastic. Awesome. Well, I think those are some really great strategies that people can use that they can maybe even dive into on their own. But if they have questions, they want to learn, they want to go into the weeds a little bit because they've heard what you said here, Chris, and they're liking it. What's the best way for them to maybe learn a little bit more about you, what you do, and maybe what are some of your sort of specialty areas that you're really helping people a lot with right now that you've found really successful for your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So feel free to put my contact information in the show notes, Phil. I
Well,
actually just a good post today that I made for financial fitness. So really just discussing what we talked about. But feel free to follow me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or call me or email me any questions you have. Just talking with, even people who aren't clients, it doesn't cost a thing to have a conversation with me. So I can at least give you my input as far as where you're at, and give you some recommendations as far as actions to take. So, and this shouldn't be something that you look at every single day because you drive yourself crazy. But, maybe when you're first getting started, it's a monthly thing, and then maybe it's a yearly thing for, certain items. So that being said, too, don't forget to celebrate the success. You may only have a couple $1,000 in your retirement account, but maybe last year you paid down like $10,000 in student loan debts because a lot of that was in forbearance and you just paid down a ton of principal. So don't forget to celebrate that as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And yes, we will definitely make sure that the show notes are all full of your contact information, where people can find you, how they can get a hold of you on social media and email and all that good stuff as well. So I got to be honest with you, Chris. I'm not sure if I asked you a couple of the questions that I like to ask all of the guests on the podcast last time. And even if I did, I'm going to ask you again, because I bet your answer could be a little different because you probably don't necessarily remember what you told me either. So before I let you go, I just have two more questions for you. Number one, what is your definition of strength?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to rewatch my first couple episodes or a couple get the answer right on point. But um, definition of strength, right?
Yeah. What's your definition of strength?
So right now, my definition of strength is actually vulnerability. So
Mm,
it takes a lot of guts, especially in this time frame, in this day and age, to just be aware of our faults, um, and be open and honest about what you have going on, but also be open and honest with other people as far as listening to them.
mm,
So I think strength has a lot to do with vulnerability and what we feel as humans. So
mm. Yeah, I love it. It's fantastic. Might even be a better answer than the first one you gave. I don't know. Let's go back and look. Yeah.
practice.
That's right. And the last question I have for you, Chris, is what is your true purpose in life?
Yeah, absolutely. So this one is fun because I mean you and I talk about this all the time. It's really just helping other people. That's what fires us up. It doesn't matter if you have one penny to rub together, pennies, or a million pennies to rub together. My purpose is helping out. So being a resource, giving some good gas, and celebrating all the wins. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Fantastic. Awesome. Well, so great to see you doing that. So great to see you kind of living out that purpose. And I really encourage you all to go at least check out some of Chris's stuff on social media, because he's putting out really good, informative stuff every day. And please reach out to him and ask questions as well. Super easy to talk to. He's going to make you feel real comfortable real quick. And I know I trust him with my own stuff. Full disclosure, I trust him with my own stuff, and I've been very happy with that. So Chris, thanks so much for coming on and share this information with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here. And likewise, Phil. I mean, everybody who follows me, take a look at Phil too. He's been just a tremendous help for me in my marathon and crazy training and all that stuff too. So thank you so much, Phil.
Yeah, of course. Happy to help and be a part of that. And again, thank you all for listening. Whether this is your first time listening or you're a returning listener, I really appreciate you. Don't forget to be a friend and tell a friend. Share this with someone you know, love, and care about, that could find value in this too. And until next time, have a great week, and we'll see you back here on the Strength for Your Purpose podcast.